Welcome in to Locked On Knicks. The Knicks have won 7 straight games. 109 to 106 over the Indiana Pacers is the latest. And I am joined by the Strickland Zach DeLizio to break it down today. Why the big three is big three and what things we're excited about with this recent stretch of play, and me retelling a story about when I sat next to Malika Andrews at MSG for like the 40th time on this podcast. But maybe someone will hear it for the first time. Next on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code Locked On. And I wanted to thank you for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day, whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or taking in the sights and sounds on YouTube. We appreciate you making us a part of your daily routine. I'm Alex Wolf. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks Like This Strickland, which you can find at thestrick.land. And I'm joined by one of my Strickland cohorts, Zach DeLizio. You might know him as at ZJ DeLizio on Twitter. You also might know him from our podcast that we do together, although it feels a little more niche than this podcast, but Nick's Mail.bag for the Strickland, which we do like twice a month-ish, or maybe more like once a month. I don't know, whatever. Ideally twice a month. And yeah, we're going to be talking about the Knicks and the Pacers. Zach, I guess I'll throw it to you first, since you're the guest and people hear from Gavin and I all the time, and you've got plenty of interesting thoughts about the team. I mean, what is something that when you were watching this game stood out to you? The Knicks grind this one out 109 to 106 over the Pacers. This was a little different from the win on Friday, where they sort of commanded the game against the Bulls and almost like embarrassed the Bulls a little bit with how badly they beat them. This one took it right down to the wire, and I think the Knicks showed a little something different in this game as far as close game intestinal fortitude and being able to really like close out a team that clearly seemed to have at least somewhat have their number throughout the night, but just kind of proving in the end, like, no, we could pull this out. We can get the defensive stops. We can make clutch free throws. We can get, the plays that we need to get this thing done.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I mean, you said it, really. What stood out to me was really, it is that grit, right? Because it's easy when your shots are falling. It's easier. It's easier to play with confidence. Day like today, where no one really had it going from three, it was a grind. The whole game was just a grind. They played fantastic defense. The Knicks played physical basketball across the board. Mitchell Robinson in particular was dominant down low as a physical presence. And these are the type of games where this is the type of games that good teams win, is the thing. And the record now is starting to show it. The point differential starts to show it. The Pacers are also a good team. And this is, I think they said on the broadcast, this sounds crazy to me, but I think they said it was 6 straight away wins, which is crazy.
Yeah, I think that was the number. And Clyde always loves to point out that the Knicks kind of play better on the road than they do at home. And he can never seem to wrap his brain around, like, I don't understand how you don't take advantage of MSG, which I sort of agree with.
When they come back, they're going to be rolling. And this crowd is going to be ready for it. And if they keep it going, it could be fun.
Yeah, I mean, Christmas week stands to be a fun one this week, leading up to the Christmas Day game that nobody in the league, or nobody that covers the league, thought the Knicks deserved going into the season and got very mad about, except for the Knicks are probably going to be going into that game about 3, 4, 5 games over 500 at this point. But we're not rubbing that in at all. Instead, we'll talk about this game. I mean, I thought that it was just another fantastic performance from the big three. I saw a lot of people on Twitter used to like calling them the mid three.
The mid three. I think that's funny, honestly.
It is funny, but now it's starting to feel a little silly because I mean, this is like, are we at like what, 5, 6, maybe every single game of this win streak that all three guys have played pretty damn good basketball. Like maybe RJ had one lower scoring game in there somewhere, but I mean, 30 points for Brunson, 25 for Randle, 24 for RJ. Randle, didn't have his best shooting performance, but once again, just kind of was doing all the little things, which has kind of become his staple now.
Yeah.
It's great seeing him care every minute of the game that he's playing. RJ, I thought, had another really good performance, and is finally starting to sort of figure things out.
He's looked so much better. He has his athleticism back. I really maybe he's just playing his way into shape. I know I read something about, he said because he was playing with the national team or something. Was he playing with Canada in the offseason? He was saying something about how he was a little tired because of something he did in the offseason. Maybe I don't remember exactly what it was, but he's rounding into shape. He looks good now. He looked very slow at points in the beginning of the season that were very concerning, and that's gone.
Yeah. It always seems to be something with him. It was whether it was the Canadian national team, which he did play. I think there was like a FIBA tournament, if I recall, over the summer, which was going to help determine something for the Olympics or something like that. So yeah, he did play in that. He had the whatever sickness it was this year. I forget the
annual sickness.
Yeah, the annual sickness that seems to sap his game
away.
But
yeah, now he's good. Now he's really good. He's been fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of how it goes with him. It's like the first 20 games or so, it almost feels like you have to throw out now. It's like every single year we go through this, and I wish that wouldn't be the case one of these years, and I'll still stand by that. But he does look fantastic.
Porzingis, right? Porzingis used to start hot and then just completely fall off the map.
Yeah, I guess this is preferable.
Yeah, at least this will go into the playoffs. You know what I mean? If they make the playoffs, then RJ will be good when it matters.
Call this the reverse Porzingis, I guess. Yeah. I thought that it was a fantastic game for him. I love the finishing from him has been like top tier lately. I think that's been the biggest. Like this game, he managed to score 24 and he didn't hit a single three, which is very telling. 10 of 19 shooting, 4 or 5 from the free throw line. That free throw shooting is finally coming around for him and for Randle, which is great. And he has that. Do you think it's like, to my eye, it's like the first step is kind of what's back for him? Like, I think
the thing is, he is never the fastest player, right? But he combines his incredible strength with just enough quickness and just enough speed. So when he had that strength but not the speed, he doesn't really get around guys at all. And it looks particularly bad because he's not really that kind of athlete, right? But now that he's got just that little bit of extra burst back, he's like, I thought he took Turner to the rim a couple times nicely, made a couple good decisions. He looks more spry, and it's really helped him.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Like I think with him, it's always just, it's to your point, everything has to be fine-tuned to the nth degree. Like if he's not at 100% of his capacity for like burst, like first step burst, he's gonna struggle to create that small window of space that he needs to finish a certain play. Yeah. But then there's even certain other things too that, like in this game, every once in a while, like, obviously he has like leaping ability because he's in the NBA and he's like 22 years old. Like he could definitely like dunk and stuff. He doesn't often show it.
When he gets a lane, he's just he's weirdly groundbound for someone who can get. I mean, he had a dunk like that tonight, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. I was just about to reference that. I'm like, that's like the biggest proof to me. Like, okay, he's feeling good right now physically. Is like when he gets one of those like blow by dunks and just gets in the middle of the lane. And Randle had one in this game.
Randle had one too. That was like LeBron. He has those. He did that more in the 2020-2021 season. We were like, wow, that was very LeBron. Like he's kind of, there was a little bit of that.
Yeah, and RJ too. I mean, just the explosion to get into the lane, finish with the left hand strong, and I mean, in RJ's case, he drew a foul on it too, and managed to
job on that throughout the game and this season in general.
Yeah. So I love it. I thought it was a fantastic game for RJ, and I hope that this is something that he can continue building on.
Yeah. However, we didn't minus despite playing the most minutes, which is an interesting dichotomy.
Also got, if you want to look at the plus minus, so what's kind of weird too is he got a lot of time with the bench. And yet most of the guys on the bench were minuses.
Well, so I think what Tibbs did, interestingly, was he made a slight adjustment to the lineup where he was playing Hartenstein and Sims. And he put in RJ. I can't remember if he did it last game or not, but he put in RJ because that lineup really just doesn't have a lot of shot creation. So Quickly didn't really have it again for the most part. So they needed someone to do something because Deuce isn't going to do it. So he started putting RJ in there, and he fits the very physical style that lineup likes to play. And he was doing a great job there. And that unit was working when he was there, and it was working less well when he was not. And I think that might single-handedly be the reason.
Yeah, it might be. I mean, whatever it was, it worked in this game. Like, I thought that RJ had just the right amount of time with the bench to sort of be that facilitator and kind of get his opportunity. I mean, there were times when he was out there with the bench unit when it seemed like the ball was in his hands almost every single possession.
Yeah, exactly. And that's good. We should be giving him that opportunity in those bench units.
And it worked out to really great effect, I think. And I think those were probably his best minutes of the game, because down the stretch, for as good as his overall game was, he did have a little bit of struggles down the stretch. I think he started like 8 of 10 and then finished 10 of 19. So
and he missed his threes, but he also played fantastic defense.
He did, which is the biggest difference. That's the biggest thing. Like,
him and Grimes together, they are on a string. It is incredible to watch sometimes.
When they're at their best, and when RJ's at his best, for sure.
Exactly.
But we've somehow gone this whole time without even talking about Jalen Brunson yet.
It's the exact same thing.
which we'll have to do in just a quick moment. But I do real quick have to remind everybody that today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks. And, I really like PrizePicks, Zach, because it is one of the best ways to play daily fantasy these days. I used to always play with some of those other companies back in the day, and they take like a $20 entry from you, and then you use their little system where you pick guys that are worth certain dollar amounts and whatever, and then you get like a budget, but then you're up against like 20,000 other real life players, and then you realize when the scoring starts coming out that like one guy bought like 5,000 entries and put this like perfect entry that he mathematically figured out, blah, blah, blah. It's a load of crap. And quite frankly, that's why I like PrizePicks so much better. It's just you versus the projected odds available, and you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. It works pretty easily. You pick 2 to 6 players, and if they will score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you don't compete against other people. And they offer projections on any sport that you watch, which includes, here comes the big list, the NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, Euro basketball, cricket, and more. You can make an entry in 60 seconds or less. It really is that easy. They offer safe and fast withdrawals, and probably my favorite feature, you can do cross-sport entries. So if you want to bet, the Jets, the Giants, and the Knicks all on a Sunday, and pick various lines that they're going to do, like RJ Barrett over 20 points and Zach Wilson under 85 pass yards. You can do that in one single entry. And PrizePicks is currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. And today's show is also brought to you by Turo. Turo is the world's largest car sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car you want, wherever you want it, from a community of local hosts. Browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget across the US, UK, Canada, and Australia. You can book a spacious SUV or minivan for a family road trip. Get a classic or luxury car for a special event, birthday, or holiday. Maybe you celebrate winning huge on PrizePicks and go take a luxury car out for a spin. You can find affordable economy cars if you're on a budget and just need to get from A to B. Or you can test drive that new electric vehicle you've had your eye on to see how it fits your everyday life. Many Turo hosts can even deliver the car right to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Forget boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com. All right, Zach, we are back with Locked On Knicks to talk more about this game, and more specifically to talk about Jalen Brunson, who we barely talked about in that first segment at all. But he ends with 30 points on 11 of 22 shooting, 3 of 3 from 3, 5 of 5 from the free throw line. The man is an absolute beast. And 2 steals, which I thought I was very impressed down the stretch. Probably my favorite play from Brunson was, I mean, he had a couple of kind of rough defensive possessions in this game. He got actually, they actually noted on the broadcast like Tibbs was kind of chewing him out once or twice, which is weird because he doesn't normally do that to anyone over the age of 25. But he did with Brunson. But like Brunson down the stretch, he first hits a three to the Knicks were down 106 to 99, I think.
They were down 6, but that felt like the verge of being completely out of control. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Or sorry, wait, it was 104 to 98. That was what it was. Because then they went on an 11-2 run to win the game. And so they're down 104 to 98. Brunson comes down, hits a clutch three, and then not like 3 seconds later, plays the pass lane to perfection, gets a steal, and runs it down the other end. Quick 5-point swing, one-man wrecking crew, and gets them within a point. And then I'll get to Julius in the next segment probably, but then Julius hits 6 straight free throws to ice the game. Well, the first, honestly, to win the game for the Knicks, not even just ice it. Like he first got them in the lead and then secured the final result for them. But Zach, Gavin and I talk about all the time about Brunson and how amazingly effortless he makes being like 6'0" and
exactly
like just cooking everybody with a pulse in the NBA look.
Yeah.
What did you see in this game? Like, is there one or two things you saw that you really loved out of him in this particular game?
Oh yeah, it's the 3-point shooting because it's been the last 2 games, right? All of a sudden, if he's even for his start in the beginning of the season, we're seeing everything from 2-point range. We're seeing the stuff in the paint that he's always gonna have, but he was not hitting the 3, right? And now these last 2 games, he's gonna be like 8 of 9, right? In the last 2 games, or has he missed a 3 at all? I'm not sure. It's incredibly impressive.
In the last game, he was 6 of 9. Before that, he was 3 of 6, and in this game, 3 of 3. So
all of a sudden, you get some regression to the mean, and he's obviously not going to shoot that hot. But if he shoots a lot of pull-ups, right? And if you could get him to 35, 36% on those pull-ups, in addition to what he already has, man, because that's not a huge part of his game historically. Not a huge part. It's still, I don't think, will be a huge part, but if you get that added dimension, man, he's already such a good player that it's great to see those balls starting to go down.
Yeah, it makes you start to think like what's going to hold him back from being an all-star potentially. Like, I mean, if those shots start going down and he starts, averaging, I mean, I think if he's hitting even 40% of his threes for an extended period of time, I mean, what's going to stop him from averaging like 25, 26 a game then?
Because if you suddenly start shooting 40%, yeah, he would be. Because that's the only thing missing. He's already efficient.
Yeah, like thus far this year, he is at, I was just looking up his most updated. He is at, wow, he's shooting 37.3% right now from 3.
That was honestly probably from the last 3 games. I know he was at like 32, like a week or 2 ago.
Yeah, I mean, he's just absolutely raising his out. He's since probably like the Portland game, I think he's raised that quite a bit. He's had a number of pretty good shooting performances since then that have really raised that average up. But if he can keep that going, there's nothing stopping him from averaging like 25 and 6. And
it's huge. The whole team is like that, right? The whole team's been shooting poorly from 3, and we're suddenly starting to get a little bit of positive regression. And they go on a 7-game win streak. And, like, there's still more where that came from. RJ missed a lot. The whole team missed a lot of open shots tonight. They still ground out an away win last year of a road trip. It's amazing. It's good stuff. They're playing like a good team.
Yeah, they are. And it's, it's great when they can absorb bad performances now. Like, that's kind of like the hallmark of an actually good team where you're not so reliant on one player having a good game that it completely sinks you if they don't. Like, there were times where if Julius had gotten a pretty inefficient 25 points like he did in this game, that would have spelled death for the Knicks, because it would have been like, well, if he's not being, efficient. And I mean, he did get to the free throw line quite a bit, although 6 of those attempts came in the last minute or so of the game. But
still counts.
Like,
no points.
Still counts. But I mean, just in the scope of like looking at what he did throughout the whole game. Three foul line trips came in the last minute or so. But like, there were times where if a game like this, scoring the ball from Julius would have been like, well, I guess that's pretty much it. But it's the nice thing of having three guys in Brunson, Randle, and Barrett that maybe while not perfect, at least most nights, every single one of them can give you volume points, like they can volume shoot their way to a decent number of points one way or another. But it seems like at least one, if not two of them, are always going to end up having an efficient night, even if one of them is having an off night.
And that's because they're learning to play off each other. It's finally kind of paying off. Like we had a couple times the other night where Brunson got the ball off a Julius kick out. And then it's unfair. He's used to beating guys one-on-one and creating his advantage. Now he gets to beat a closeout. Man, he takes advantage of that. And they kind of do that night to night. It shifts around, and they're still finding that balance, but they're getting better at it. And each of them has, the fact that they can have this kind of balanced scoring and they get nothing from the bench and you win this game. They carried them is the reality. They carried them. The Pacers are a great team, but they're a good team. And they're not nearly as bad as everyone thought they were. They're a 500 team. Beating a 500 team on the road is never nothing. And you got it with no one had anything going, really.
Yeah, and it's sort of becoming the story though that like these three guys are really, they've been like the catalyst now for at least this whole win streak. Like, you look at the last few games. Like you're gonna get some better performances out of like Grimes from time to time. Like in that first Bulls game, Grimes had the 22 points, and sometimes like quickly he'll have like 12 or whatever. But like for the most part, it's been at least 2 out of the 3 scoring 25 or more, and in many cases like tonight, like and I think the second Bulls game was like this, and one other game recently where they all had like 22 or more or 24 or more, something like that. Starting to become more commonplace, and I think it is really finally them learning how to properly play off one another, and it is starting to really come together. Like they're starting to find their spots as far as spotting up, as far as, okay, I'm driving this possession, get the hell out of the way. Like I'm going to kick it out and you be out there waiting for it. And then, okay, like I know that the defense is probably going to close on me. So, okay, RJ, you be waiting in the corner for the pass. And then you'll get
there's meat on the bone. You know what I mean? They still have times where Randle ducks in when someone's driving because they were not on the same page of where the play was going. That still happens. And
you said Randle's name. I want to talk about him too, but let me just ask you one more thing before we wrap this segment up. Like, am I right in saying too, part of that symbiosis that they're showing now, I think, is figuring out how to work Mitch into this equation too, where it never really, to me, feels like Mitch is in the way anymore. It feels like he's always just right where he needs to be for the offensive rebound to
sort of
put it back up.
I think it's less. I think you're right. I think the reason for that is not because Mitch is necessarily in different places, but because Mitch is actually like in shape and playing hard. That's literally all he needs to do. Like people can't leave him because then he gets in a spot on the offensive glass and he wins everything. So that's where his like spacing comes from, right? Spacing just means you can't help off a guy. If you help off him and he's in a dunker spot, he's going to get that rebound. That's the thing. So you have to be careful. You have to play it a little more. In the beginning of the season, he just didn't play with force, really. And now he's playing with force, and he was so important tonight. Tonight.
Whatever. Same difference. Anyway, all right. Well, let's talk about Randle and maybe Mitch more in the next segment. But Zach, I do have to quickly remind everybody that today's show is brought to you by ExpressVPN. So we all know ExpressVPN protects your privacy and security online, right? But here's something you might not know. You can also use ExpressVPN to unlock movies and shows that are only available in other countries. Maybe you've run out of stuff to watch on Netflix. This will change your world. Or perhaps, Zach, like you want to watch the Knicks on League Pass, but you have to make your computer think you're somewhere else. So ExpressVPN allows you to binge The Office on UK Netflix. You can watch The Office on Netflix again. It's so simple to do. You just sign in to Netflix, fire up the ExpressVPN app, change your location to the UK, refresh Netflix, and that is it. ExpressVPN lets you control where you want sites to think you're located. You can choose from almost 100 different countries. So just imagine all the Netflix libraries you can go through. If you love Korean dramas, you can use ExpressVPN to parasite off of South Korean Netflix with your Netflix subscription. Man, ExpressVPN people got puns on puns. But it's not just Netflix. ExpressVPN works with any streaming service, Hulu, BBC iPlayer, YouTube, you name it. There are hundreds of VPNs out there, but the reason I use ExpressVPN to watch shows is because it's ridiculously fast. There's never any buffering or lag, and you can stream in HD with no problem. ExpressVPN also works on all your devices, phones, media consoles, smart TVs, and more, so you can watch what you want on the big screen or on the go. So if you want to get access to hundreds of new shows, go to expressvpn.com/lockedon right now, and you can get an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN for free. That's expressvpn.com/lockedon, expressvpn.com/lockedon to learn more. All right, we're back to Locked On Knicks to finish talking about this game. And Zach, I teased this in the intro, and I teased this to you before we started recording. I get to retell my I met Malika Andrews before she was super famous story, which longtime listeners of the show have probably heard like a million times, but I always just think it's a funny story. So, and I always think of it after Pacers games, because this was from a Pacers game. And this game, I really think it brings a full circle. So this doesn't feel gratuitous, but so it was almost like this exact time, right? It was I guess a little earlier. It would have been like late November of 2019, because it was Fizdale had just been fired and Mike Miller was taking over in his very first game as Knicks coach, and they were facing the Indiana Pacers at home at MSG. And of course, RJ Barrett, Julius Randle, Alfred Payton, everybody's favorite. Everybody was on the roster, our long lost favorite son, Alfred Payton. And I remember I was there with Sports Illustrated. That was when I had the pleasure of writing for them a little bit during that season. And so I was in the press box, and I was sitting next to Malika Andrews, who was there, and she just I think she was just like taking in the game. Maybe she was working on a story like afterwards, need to talk to some players or something, but she was mostly just taking in the game. I'm sitting there, I'm like taking my notes, whatever. And it was a really tight game, and it came down to the last couple of possessions. And I distinctly remember it came down to Julius Randle got fouled and had the opportunity to tie the game by making both free throws and send it to overtime, because there was like a second left on the clock. So like there was pretty much, outside of if he missed the first one, I guess he could try to miss the second one and then get a putback or whatever, which was what ended up happening. But so I'm sitting there, and Malika Andrews is sitting next to me, and I'm like, I always tried to play it cool a little bit and be like, no, I'm here as media. I should not be like gesticulating and acting like a fan the whole time. But I'm sitting there, and like he got fouled, and I was like, oh God. And I'm like, oh no. And Malika Andrews turns to me. She's like, do you think he's gonna make them? And I was like, I literally like laughed in her face. I was like no.
You missed both or just one?
What's that?
Did you miss both or just one?
He missed the first one, and I just like sighed. And then he tried to intentionally miss the second one and get a putback, and of course it didn't work. And they lost the game by 2 points, if my memory is serving me correctly. Either way, all I know is that he missed at least one of them. I'm fairly certain he missed both, though. Either way, he didn't make them. And the Knicks did not send it to overtime, and they lost that first game of the Mike Miller era, which felt like still a huge moral victory at the time, because Indy was pretty good at that time. But that's my I sat next to Malika Andrews at MSG before she was famous story. But the reason I tell that, well, I shouldn't say before she was famous. She was definitely still like she had bylines on ESPN.com at that point, but she didn't like literally have her own show at that point yet. But the reason I bring that up is because what a change 4 years makes, right?
Yeah.
Like, or I guess 3 years, technically speaking. It's weird how the seasons have lined up since because of the COVID season. No, I guess that's right. 2019, 2020, 2021. I guess it's been 4 years. But like just the fact that in this game, Julius Randle, first off, gets the opportunity to put the Knicks ahead down the stretch of the game. He gets fouled and gets on the line for 2 free throws to tie it, which is very reminiscent of that game all those years ago in his first season with the Knicks, and cans both free throws, puts them up by 1. And then gets fouled again, goes up there and makes 2 more free throws, and then gets fouled one more time and cans 2 more free throws. I thought, I know it's kind of silly considering all the other amazing things that he's done in his time with the Knicks, like between the 20 to 21 season with how good he's playing right now, some of the stuff that he does on a nightly basis, and the passes and the shots and whatever. I thought this was maybe the most star-worthy thing that Julius Randle has done in his time with the Knicks. Like, to go up there and make 6 straight free throws, like even LeBron struggles with that.
Yeah, I mean, it was clutch as hell.
Yeah.
That is difficult to do 6 times in a row in that kind of pressure.
Yeah, it's just fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. I've been having a hard time putting my finger on exactly what made him turn around this time.
You mean like so far this season?
Yeah, like it's just such a he has such like Jekyll and Hyde energy that.
Well, yeah.
3 weeks ago, like everybody in the world was ready to just be like, "Can we just get this guy off the damn team already? Like, we're ready to move on." And now it's like, I feel like he's like indispensable again.
Well, so Alex, I'm glad you bring this up because I, as the ardent Julius Randle defender who got made fun of quite a bit, feel like I can take a pretty good stand here. He was always playing better this year. It was just that the results were not really there, and he's still like when he gets uncomfortable, he does dumb shit. I'm sorry. Am I not allowed to curse?
You're not. You just made me have to beep something, but that's okay.
Okay. If you want to just rewind it, I could just say he does a lot of dumb stuff.
Yeah, well, that's fine. I'm keeping all this in because I think it's funny. People like this.
Okay.
According to data, most people have tuned out by this point anyway. So
it's fair, right? He does dumb stuff a lot. And that's really, in a lot of ways, a fitting way to put it. But he does that when he plays in a structure. This happens to him defensively as well. I think it's true on both ends. Him as a player, he needs a lot of structure around him. When it's straightforward, he's able to do things well. Even then, he gets a little crazy. Like we still get the occasional, one too many dribbles on those posts up, the double comes too quickly, and it's a really ugly turnover. That's still happening, but he's spraying out passes. He's making good decisions. He's decisive, which is really important. There's no more of those trademark Julius Randle like where he gets a catch and shoot 3 and he pump fakes and then drives and the defender doesn't bite and the sequence is over. He's shooting the ball confidently. His shot profile has changed. I don't think he's really taking any long range mid-rangers really at all. Maybe 1 or 2 a game. He had like a banker, sometimes on the post up, he goes to that to try to draw the fouls. But none of those like 18-footers seem to be there anymore. He's going to the rim a lot. He's getting fouled more, and he's finding his place in the offense. And I think they're finding places for him. He plays off Brunson pretty well, and the results are showing. It's honestly it's really great to see because it was all mental with him. It was always mental with him, right? We've seen him do this before. He did it for a whole season. There were just no fans there, and that means something. That tells me that it's probably a mental thing, and that's kind of just how the NBA is. People are always better in an open gym than they are in an NBA game, so that comes with the territory. But when it's mental, it's nice to see a guy kind of put it together, And obviously, it could go south tomorrow. Who knows? But so far, he's honestly great. He played great defense tonight.
Yeah, he really did. I think outside of those free throws, another thing that really stood out to me was he got mad. And I understand a lot of his defensive struggles when they do happen more with communication with his teammates than they do necessarily with like one-on-one situations.
Exactly.
Nonetheless, it was still pretty impressive to see him get matched up one-on-one with Halliburton, who's been quite frankly great this season, and like completely shut him down on one of the game's like most important possessions.
He can do it. He can do it.
He can. And it's all he needs to be is motivated. To the point on that shot profile too, I think you're right. And Gavin pointed this out on a recent podcast too. He looked up some of the numbers and like Randle has shot significantly less of those long twos this year.
Yep.
And it's pretty much like
right?
Yeah. And he's shooting more threes and not exactly. And at like a more middling percentage, but it's helping his like true shooting and stuff because more threes shot at a pretty good like league average or so is better than shooting a bunch of long twos at better than league average, but still not good. you know? And so, he's sort of like in many ways like Hardenified or Morey balled or whatever you want to call his shot profile. And it's really working. I think it's finally starting to pay off now that the threes are finally going down. Like when you're shooting 25% from three, okay, yeah, maybe it's like maybe cut down on one or two of those a game. When he's shooting as well as he is right now, it looks pretty good. Zach, are there we're pretty much reaching towards the end of the podcast here. It's so easy to gush for like 35 minutes about this team right now. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you want to touch on before we get going?
No, I do. Well, I guess the one thing would be the team defense. It turns out that all of the young guys play good defense, and it turns out when you play good defenders together, the team has a good defense. I know maybe the numbers were like average. Would they give up like 106 in the end tonight? But
yeah,
Indiana was hitting some stuff where you're like, that's not. I mean, it's kind of like you just toss up your hands. What was his name? The guy who went off who averages 8 points per game, Neesmith, right? Neesmith. He was hitting some kind of garbage where you just kind of shrug your shoulders. You know what I mean? These and ones where it's like, I don't know. And still only gave up 106. I thought their defense was fantastic. Their defense has been a big part of this win streak on the road because they play only good defenders. Rose and Fournier are out of rotation. Cam, although he should be a good defender, really isn't, is a big part of those communication issues. And having Grimes back is huge. These guys communicate well in defense. It looks in a lot of ways like the 2020-2021 team. It really does.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, I mean, today's NBA 106 is not a bad number anymore. I mean, that 106 points is the second best per game defense in the NBA this year.
Would it really be? Wow. Yeah. So even I didn't even realize how far it had gone. There you go. So it was a good defense, even though it could have been better.
Yeah. Yeah. The Cavs currently giving up 104.6 points per game for best in the league. Wow. Next is the Clippers at 107.6, then the Sixers at 108.1, Bucks at 108.4, and the Heat at 109 to even out the top five.
Climbing that defensive rating chart again.
Yep, and this is just per game, so this isn't like defensive rating. But the Knicks at 13th currently in points per game, given up at 112.4, which that has gone down drastically in the last few weeks because I think like 2.5, maybe 3 weeks ago they were at like 116, and now they're at 112. So that's working its way down. So another great defensive performance for the Knicks. And another great podcast performance for one, Zach Delizio, I gotta say.
Nice one. That was good.
Zach, do you have anything you want to promote before we get rolling here and get going for the night?
No, we do a film watching session on Discord for the Strickland. That's something me and Schwinn started doing. But other than that, no. It was just follow me on Twitter, I guess.
Yeah, so check out the Strickland's Patreon, which is at patreon.com/thestrickland, where you can, new feature. Zach and Schwinn have started rewatching some games on there from time to time, providing like some after the fact commentary, re-breaking down, because we all know you got to watch it at least 2 to 3 times if you want to be as good as Tim.
Correct. We're watching it. It's one of the 5 times we rewatch each game, so we wanted to bring the people in on it.
It's the 5th time, so we make sure that we have everything locked down. But yeah, definitely check that out if you subscribe to the Strickland Patreon. If you don't, check out the Strickland Patreon. So you can get all kinds of good stuff there. So not that I have anything to do with that at all. Of course. Anyway, thank you all for listening to this episode of Locked On Knicks. We'll have a couple more game recaps for you guys this week. Maybe a guest or something. I don't know. We got some cool stuff coming up. So keep your ears out, keep your eyes out. Till next time, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to y'all soon. Peace out.